Welcome to EnglishPass Podcast, brought to you from our local studio in Calgary. I'm your host, Samantha, and today we're diving into an exciting topic: body language. Whether you're a beginner or intermediate learner, in this podcast, we're helping you level up your English listening and reading skills. And before we get started, let me tell you that the sponsor of this episode is TypeFit, keyboard typing practice and learning service. Today, we're exploring something really interesting: body language. This is an engaging subject for English learners because it covers a lot of practical vocabulary and real-world situations. So, let's dive right in. Body language is the silent language we all speak every single day, often without even realizing it. While we spend a great deal of time worrying about the exact words we choose to say, our bodies are often telling a completely different story. Have you ever spoken to someone who said they were happy, yet their shoulders were slumped and their eyes were fixed on the floor? You probably did not believe them. And for a good reason. This is because nonverbal communication is deeply rooted in our biology. Nonverbal communication is a broad term that refers to the process of sending and receiving wordless messages through various physical behaviors. Experts in psychology suggest that a staggering 55 to 90% of all human communication is nonverbal. This means that your posture, your gestures, and even the tiny movements of your facial muscles are doing the heavy lifting in every conversation you have. To understand this better, we should first look at the face, which is perhaps the most expressive part of the human body. Think about the concept of a microexpression. A microexpression is a very brief, involuntary facial expression that humans make when they are trying to hide an emotion. They happen in a fraction of a second, so fast that most people miss them if they are not looking closely. For example, imagine you are at a birthday party and someone gives you a gift that you actually do not like. You might smile and say thank you, but for a tiny millisecond, your nose might wrinkle in a sign of disgust or your lips might tighten. That is a microexpression. It reveals your true feeling before your brain has time to put on a mask and pretend to be happy. This concept was famously studied by Dr. Paul Ekman, who discovered that there are 7 universal facial expressions: happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, surprise, and contempt. These expressions are the same whether you are in a busy city in New York or a remote village in the mountains of Papua New Guinea. This suggests that body language is not just learned. It is part of our shared human DNA. Next, let us consider posture. Posture refers to the way you hold your body when you are standing or sitting. It can tell a stranger a lot about your confidence level and your mood. Think about a job interview scenario. You are sitting in the waiting room with 3 other candidates. One person is sitting upright with their shoulders back and their hands resting calmly on their knees. Another person is hunched over their phone with their chin tucked into their chest and their legs tightly crossed. Who looks more prepared for the job? Most people would choose the first person. This is because an open posture, where the chest and neck are exposed, signals that you are confident, honest, and ready to engage. Conversely, a closed posture, where you cross your arms or legs, often signals that you are feeling defensive, cold, or perhaps even bored. It is like a physical shield we put up to protect ourselves from the environment. The hands and arms are also incredibly important in how we convey meaning. We use gestures to emphasize our points and add color to our stories. A gesture is a movement of a part of the body, especially a hand or a head, to express an idea or meaning. Have you ever tried to give someone directions without using your hands? It is surprisingly difficult. This is because our brains are wired to use movement to help us think and speak. However, we must be careful with gestures because they can be very cultural. For instance, the thumbs up sign is generally seen as a positive gesture in many Western countries, meaning good job or everything is okay. But did you know that in parts of West Africa, Greece, and the Middle East, this same gesture can be considered very offensive? This highlights one of the most important rules of body language. Context is everything. You cannot read a single gesture in isolation. You must look at the whole picture to understand what is really happening. Another fascinating area of body language is called proxemics. This is a fancy word for the study of personal space. Think about the last time you were in a crowded elevator. Everyone probably stood very still, looking up at the numbers or down at their shoes, trying their best not to touch anyone else. This is because we all have an invisible bubble of space around us. When a stranger enters that bubble, it makes us feel anxious or threatened. In North America and Northern Europe, people tend to prefer a larger bubble of personal space. However, in Mediterranean and Latin American cultures, people often stand much closer together when they talk and touch each other more frequently. If you do not understand these cultural differences, you might accidentally offend someone or feel uncomfortable yourself without knowing why. Is the other person being aggressive by standing close, or are they just being friendly according to their own cultural norms? We should also talk about the concept of mirroring. Have you ever noticed yourself picking up the habits of a close friend? Maybe you start using the same hand movements or sitting in the same way they do. This is a subconscious behavior called mirroring. Subconscious means it happens without you being aware of it. When we like someone or feel a strong connection with them, we naturally begin to copy their body language. This builds rapport, which is a state of mutual understanding and harmony between people. Salespeople and negotiators often use this technique on purpose to make their clients feel more comfortable. If you lean forward, they lean forward. If you cross your ankles, they cross their ankles. It is a silent way of saying, I am like you, and we are on the same team. However, there is a common misconception that body language is a perfect way to detect a liar. Many people believe that if someone looks to the left, they are lying, or if they touch their nose, they are hiding a secret. The reality is much more complicated. There is no single Pinocchio's nose sign that proves someone is lying. Instead, experts look for clues of stress or a lack of congruence. Congruence is when your words and your body language match. If someone says, I am so excited to be here, but they are tapping their foot nervously and looking at the exit, there is no congruence. Their body is telling the truth while their mouth is telling a lie. To truly understand if someone is being dishonest, you have to establish a baseline. This means you need to know how they behave when they are relaxed and telling the truth. Only then can you notice when their behavior changes in a suspicious way. Let us look at a real-world example of how body language can change an outcome. Imagine a public speaker standing on a stage. They might have the most brilliant speech in the world written on their paper. But if they stand behind a heavy wooden podium, never make eye contact with the audience, and speak in a flat voice while gripping the edges of the desk, the audience will likely fall asleep. Now, imagine a different speaker. This person walks across the stage, uses wide hand gestures to describe their ideas, and smiles at the people in the back row. Even if their speech is less brilliant, the audience will feel more energized and inspired. This is because the second speaker is using their body to project energy and warmth. They are using their physical presence to own the room. As you move through your day, try to become a more active observer of these silent signals. Watch how people interact at a coffee shop or how your coworkers stand during a meeting. Are their feet pointed toward the door, suggesting they want to leave? Are they nodding their heads slowly, which usually means they are listening, or are they nodding quickly, which often means they want you to stop talking so they can have a turn? Learning to read these signals is like gaining a superpower. It allows you to see the hidden emotions beneath the surface of every conversation. But remember, body language is often ambiguous, meaning it can have more than one interpretation. Someone might have their arms crossed simply because they are cold, not because they are angry. Always look for clusters of signals, 3 or 4 signs that point to the same emotion, before you jump to a conclusion. Understanding body language is not just about reading other people. It is also about being aware of the signals you are sending out into the world. By making small changes, like standing a bit straighter or making more eye contact, you can actually change how you feel inside. Some studies suggest that power posing, standing in a confident way for just 2 minutes, can lower your stress hormones and make you feel more courageous. This shows that the relationship between our bodies and our minds is a two-way street. Your mind tells your body how to act, but your body can also tell your mind how to feel. By mastering your body language, you are not just improving your communication. You are improving your relationship with yourself and the world around you. It is a lifelong journey of observation and practice. But once you start seeing the silent language, you will never look at a conversation the same way again. And that's all for today's episode of EnglishPass Podcast. I hope you found this helpful. Remember to practice what you've learned and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we improve. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and join us next time. Let me remind you that the sponsor of the episode is TypeFit, and I suggest to check the link at the description. I'm Samantha, and I'm excited to be your host for many more fascinating episodes to come. Until then, keep learning and